It has become clear that many major social media platforms now employ experts known as attention engineers, who use techniques borrowed from places like Las Vegas casinos and other sources to make their products as addictive as possible. The main goal for these companies is to get users to interact with their platforms in a highly addictive way, as this increases the amount of profit they can extract from your attention and the data you provide.
We've reached a point where the tools we've created are actively undermining the social structure and the way society operates. As the technologist Garen Lunaire puts it, these companies offer enticing rewards in exchange for your time and personal data, which they then gather and sell to others.
The attention economy, in the quest for ever-increasing amounts of users' attention, has grown increasingly cutthroat. As competition to grab users' attention intensified, the need for manipulative design tactics also grew. Websites and platforms had to adopt more and more strategies to keep you engaged.
What you might not realize is that these social media platforms are intentionally designed to be addictive. The main objective of these platforms is to fragment your focus and break it into as many pieces as possible throughout your waking hours. The growing body of research tells us that spending large portions of your day in a constant state of distraction by frequently checking things like Instagram can permanently diminish your ability to concentrate. This is especially concerning when we look at the younger generation, who are the most heavily saturated by this technology. It's very addictive because if you pull on the slot machine arm enough, you will win, and you never know which fool will reward you.
That's an addictive behavior, and it's dopamine that is driving that addiction. So what happens with social media is Robert Sapolsky, the foundational research on this, Stanford calls it, the magic of maybe when you look at your phone, and maybe there's a text there, and maybe there's not, and you don't know when it shows up that high. You get that's dopamine. It's the magic, maybe.
Maybe it'll be there. Maybe it won't when it shows up. Maybe they 400 cents spike in dopamine. That is roughly the same amount of dopamine as you're getting from cocaine, slightly less than an extremely addictive drug, like cocaine. And that's what's happening. We really care what other people think of us. So for example, when you upload a new photo, a new profile photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this could actually message me and say, "Oh, you have new likes on your profile photo." And it knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. And the thing is that they control the dial. The technology companies control the dial for when and how long your profile photo shows up on other people's news feeds, so they can orchestrate it, so that other people more often end up liking your profile photo over a delayed period of time, for example, so that you end up having to more frequently come back and see what the new likes are.
And it's literally rewiring our brain. Even social media, the challenges, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything, because this is social media depression, because where's everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, that they're highlights of other people's lives, and there's actually less satisfaction or sadness, depression, and stuff like that. And it's interesting because if you think about things that, routinely produced a lot of dopamine, alcohol, for example, there's a drinking age, right? We have a drinking. If the alcohol releases a whole lot of dopamine, it makes you feel really, really good. We say, okay, you can have that, but you've got to wait. You've got to be 21 years old. We don't do that with social media. We're, essentially putting highly addictive drugs into the hands of kids before they have any natural defenses against them. And what you're seeing with internet addiction, with social media, it's the same thing over and over to people trying to change their state of consciousness with a device trying to get at the underlying neurochemical chemistry, and it's very, very addictive.
So I would say the problem with the gadgets, and I mean they're amazing things, is that they approximately interfere with medium to long-term goals, I would say. And so I think the first thing you have to do to bring them under control is figure out what it is that their use is interfering with. It has to be something important. So you think, well, I want to do something important. What is that? It could be personal. Maybe you want to have a relationship, going to get married. You want to have kids. You want to have a career that's meaningful. You know, you want to have a life. You want to have an Abrahamic adventure and be the father of nations. Let's say we can't be ratting away on your cell phone and doing that. And so I think part of it is to set your sights high and make a plan and figure out who you could be and see if obsessive utilization of smartphone fits into that vision of nobility. And it will partly because they're unbelievably powerful communication devices, but so often it's for lack of something better to do. And it also interferes.
You know, and imagine like when you take that to the extreme where, you know, bad actors can now manipulate large swathes of people to do anything you want. It's a really, really bad state of affairs, and we compound the problem, right? We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded in these short-term signals, hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value, and we conflate it with truth. And instead, what it really is fake, brittle popularity that's short-term, and that leaves you even more, and admit it vacant and empty before you did it. Because then it forces you into this vicious cycle where you're like, what's the next thing I need to do now because I need it back? Think about that compounded by 2 billion people, and then think about how people react then to the perceptions of others. It's really bad.
So we know from the research literature that the more you use social media, the more likely you are to feel lonely or isolated. We know that the constant exposure to your friends' carefully curated positive portrayals of their life and leave you to feel inadequate and can increase rates of depression. And something I think we're going to be hearing more about in the near future. I said there's a fundamental mismatch between the way our brains are wired and this behavior of exposing yourself to stimuli with intermittent rewards throughout all of your waking hours. So it's one thing to spend a couple hours at the slot machine in Las Vegas, but if you bring the slot machine with you and you pull that handle all day long from when you wake up, that when you go to bed, we're not wired from it. It's short circuits to brain. We're starting to find that it has actual cognitive consequences, one of them being the sort of pervasive background hum of anxiety.
Here's the thing. The world we live in isn't real. Social media isn't real, and by design, social media rewards us for showing our best life. The edited posed champagne, Michelin star holiday, orchestrated best angle of our life, the highlight reel. But you don't ever see real life. The 99% of our lives, the behind the scenes, that unglamorous, unfiltered, day-to-day, bland normality. And you end up comparing your behind the scenes to other people's fake highlight reel and using others as a mirror benchmark for how you should look, how successful you should be, or how you should live. These fake comparisons will only serve to make you feel inadequate and inferior to something that isn't even real. Research continually shows that comparing your life to someone else's creates envy, low self-confidence, low self-esteem, and depression. You compare yourself to other people every single day, consciously or subconsciously. And no matter what I say, you're not going to stop. Because comparing one thing to another is a natural human thing to do, whether we want to admit it or not. A big reason why anything has value is because there's something worse, all better to compare it to. Think about it. An old brick of a mobile phone with a big aerial is only considered amazing in a world before the smartphone. The horse and carriage is only considered a phenomenal mode of transport until the car comes along. The answer isn't to stop making comparisons, because unfortunately we can't control that. But you have to change the object of your comparison from someone else to yourself. You have to measure yourself against yourself. And by doing this, you start a base point where you consider yourself to be perfectly fine exactly how you are. But it also is the most effective, motivating, and healthy way to work to improve yourself. You'll happy yourself when you stop putting pressure on yourself to be more like someone else. And when you start comparing real to real.
We are in a really bad state of affairs right now. In my opinion, it is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. You know, my solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I have it for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at my Facebook feed, if I probably haven't, I posted maybe 2 times in 7 years, 3 times, 5 times, it's less than 10. And it's weird, I guess. I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed, and so I just tuned it out, but I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me up. In the 1970s and early 80s, at Xerox PARC, when Steve Jobs first encountered the graphical user interface, it was described as a bicycle for our minds. The idea was that you take a human with certain abilities, then give them a bicycle, and suddenly they can travel further, explore new places, and accomplish things they couldn't before. It empowered them with new capacities. This has always been the vision of those who create technology. To build tools that serve as bicycles for the mind, helping us access more, do more, and feel more. When the first iPhone was launched, it followed the same philosophy. The goal was to empower people to do more. Back then, it wasn't about manipulation, as there was no competition for attention. Software like Photoshop wasn't designed to grab your attention for as long as possible. Success wasn't measured in those terms. Early on, the internet wasn't created with the intent to monopolize attention. Either, it was just about sharing information, creating message boards, and connecting people. It hadn't yet evolved into the system designed with persuasive psychology that we now experience today. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it, rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term, dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?